When you're first starting FPV, it's always very exciting. You're making constant progress every time you go out, and you get noticeably better from week to week. But at some point this progress is gonna slow down, maybe even to the point where you feel completely stuck and you're not going anywhere. Maybe you're posting on social media and you're not getting any views, and this is insanely frustrating. But there's actually a very good reason why that happens with FPV specifically, much more than with other hobbies. And I think it's best explained with this little skill progression graph, which looks something like this, where you have your skill level on the y-axis and your practice time on the x-axis. And your skill progression curve is always gonna look something like this, where in the beginning you're making a lot of progress very quickly, but as time goes on it just gets slower and slower. And actually this skill progression is gonna be basically the same for any hard to learn skill. So for example, if you're learning the piano, are you gonna be good after 20 hours of practice? No, of course not, you're gonna be fucking dog shit. How about learning to draw after 50 hours of practice? Sure, you're gonna be a lot better than 20 hours, but you're still gonna suck. What about playing a competitive game like Counter-Strike or League of Legends for 100 hours? You'll probably know your way around a little bit at this point, but you're still gonna be in the bottom ranks. And it's really not until the 200 hour mark where you're actually starting to get somewhere and you're no longer shit. And getting to the 200 hour mark for these examples is not all that difficult. You can just sit down for 1 hour every day, and after 6 months you're gonna have your 200 hours. But getting 200 hours of actual FPV flight time is a very different story, because you need to charge batteries, you need to drive to the spot, and then each battery only lasts about 5 minutes. So if you have 6 batteries, you're only getting about 30 minutes per session. And if you're flying once per week, you're really only getting about 25 hours of actual flight time in a full year, which is just not enough. So you gotta pump those numbers up. And by far the easiest and most cost-effective way is gonna be in the simulator. And if you choose the simulator that I'm developing, which is called the Zone, you can basically just go straight to the 200 hour skill level mark without even touching a real drone, and just get a huge head start without spending thousands on broken drones. And this is what the 200 hour skill level looks like in practice. But of course, just playing simulators for 200 hours can get a bit boring. So the second most effective way to pump up your flight time is gonna be to fly more tiny whoops. Because you can just fly those inside of your house, you don't need good weather, you don't need sunlight, and it's also a lot less expensive than flying 5-inch. But you're probably still gonna be spending about 5 to 10 bucks per 1 hour of flight time. And the last way to boost your flight time, which is the most fun, but also the most expensive, is to just fly more 5-inch. So what if instead of only flying 6 packs per session, you could be flying 20? And if you're still doing 1 session per week, you would get about 80 hours of flight time in a year instead of only 25. But charging and carrying around 20 lipos is super annoying. So what me and all my friends do is we all have a field charging pack, which is basically just a big pack of lithium-ion batteries. And then we just keep cycling the same couple of packs over and over and recharging after flying, which is just super convenient, and you're basically never running out of lipos. But unfortunately there's no good ready-made solution that you can just buy, so you're gonna have to either get someone to build you one, or alternatively look for solar storage batteries, but those tend to be pretty heavy compared to lithium-ion options. And I mentioned earlier that flying tiny whoop costs about 5 to 10 bucks per flying hour, but flying 5-inch freestyle in a bando-like environment is gonna be way more expensive than that, and you're probably looking at about 50 to 100 euros for every flying hour. So if you want to get to the 200 hour milestone on just 5-inch, you're probably gonna end up spending about 15,000 euros. So just a little heads up. So that sums up how to maximize your flight time. But there's also another important piece, which is practice efficiency. Or basically how to get the most results from your time invested. Because if you're practicing on a shitty setup, you can really limit your progress. So to maximize your sim practice efficiency, you really want a gaming PC that can push consistent high frame rates. You also want a gaming monitor with at least 120 Hz refresh rate, and actually turn that on as well. And you also want to connect your radio with a USB cable and not Bluetooth, because that adds a shit ton of latency. And to maximize your RL practice, you really want a good flying drone that is lightweight and well tuned. You also want a low latency radio link, so anything with 250 Hz or better. And if you're flying digital, always fly on the lowest latency mode, which is usually called race mode. And I'm not gonna go into detail on specific flying exercises, but really just keep it fun, try out some different flying styles every once in a while, set trick challenges for yourself, But most importantly, just fly as much as possible and you're gonna get better naturally.